There's a video online on YouTube. I'll put a link to it. It's from a few years ago, but basically it's a mass brawl in a car park in Boston, Massachusetts. Just in case you're thinking of Boston, England, I'm talking about Boston, Massachusetts. And basically, what the footage seems to show is a group of 27, supposedly 27, although it's very hard to count, so we'll have to just take the word of the uploader. 27 Asian guys fighting 3 white guys. The literal title is 27 Asians fighting 3 white guys in Boston. Now this sort of video, of course, is always going to controversy and sort of flame wars in the comment section. My first instinct about this is that the majority of guys attacking the minority are gutless cowards. Full stop. Any group of men who acts like that, who attacks a group of individuals, are nothing but cowards. I think it's disgusting behaviour, I think it's despicable, and it's basically pack mentality. That's the first thing. And I think if you're a decent human being, you would recognise that. There is an issue here with the comment section in that there is, of course, inevitable race wars. What I mean by that is a lot of racist comments against Asian people in general, saying all Asians are pussies, all Asians act like this, and things I don't want to repeat. And then there was also racism against white people, saying all white people are racists. These sort of generalizations, and you know, some white liberals say reverse racism doesn't exist. They're deluded. Racism is racism. It exists wherever it is. And basically, there were some people under the video trying to justify it, saying something like the white guys initiate this because they made racist remarks, or of course women were involved, as is often the case. They said something about white guys saying something to the Asian girls, the Asian guys, then jumped in. I don't know. I don't know the background, and with so many of these videos it is difficult to ascertain the background, because quite often the whole video is not available. You're only seeing part of it. But what I see in the video is a group of guys attacking individuals. Now let's play the devil's advocate for a second and say, okay, the white guys did initiate it, although I find that hard to believe. It wouldn't be a very clever thing to do. But let's say for a second they did. Let's say they came out with some racial comments. Let's say the Asian guys responded in that way. It still doesn't justify outnumbering them. If the white guys acted like that, then they could have confronted them. They could have said, "What's your problem?" something like that. But in the end of the day, if you behave in that sort of way, you're going to be the ones with the bad image. If you're ganging up on a group of individuals. If the white guys were being racist, then handle it one-on-one. You know, 3 white guys, okay, 3 of the Asian guys can sort it out. But to get a mob of 27 people to beat up 3 guys is disgusting. Whatever the circumstances, regardless of the circumstances. And if you think it's okay, then you're a thug, basically. I mean, I'm against street brawls in general. I don't think mature people should behave in this way to solve disputes. I mean, these kids need to grow up. I'm presuming a lot of them are quite young. Like, looking at them, they look like early 20s, a bit younger than me, about the same age as me, but they need to grow up. Because this is not the way to settle disputes, it's just stupid. Someone did raise a valid point, I think. They said if this was reversed and it was a gang of white guys beating up a group of black guys or Asian guys, automatically the media would be all over it and brand it a racist incident. Now, to my knowledge, this didn't even make it any sort of news. Why is that? If it was reversed, it was a group of white guys attacking, say, 3 Asian guys, it would be plastered all over America, and Chinese Americans would be so reactionary, and they'd be demanding action. There'd be hundreds of thousands of them in New York. The point I'm making here is there's obviously different responses and different attitudes to what people do regarding on their skin tone, regarding to their skin tone. In the United States, this is still a huge problem, and it isn't unique to America, although I think it's more pronounced there. there's other examples of double standards, frankly, when it comes to... Now, by the way, I should say, this is a very generic thing, Asians. They could be Chinese, they could be Vietnamese. I don't know, no one's making that clear. Asia's a continent. Look behind me. That is Asia. Okay, it's a whole continent. Stretches everywhere from northern Siberia to Sri Lanka, and then everywhere from Japan to Israel. That's technically Asia. So I think we need to be a little bit, to just say 27 Asians. I mean, why not 27 Vietnamese or 27 Chinese? And then my next question would be, well, who exactly are these guys? Are they Asian American? Chinese American? Are they overseas students? Who are they exactly? Whatever the case, they're behaving like street thugs. And I'm not saying the white guys are innocent, but the bottom line is 27 on 3 is disgusting. Whatever the 3 done, even if they're racist, I still say it's disgusting, and I don't condone racism. But you know, to behave in that way, it really pisses me off to see that, because it's not a fair fight. And that's the thing about street fights, they never really are fair. They're idiotic, often alcohol fueled. They're just an idiotic thing. I appreciate there's some circumstances where people need to defend themselves, maybe defend their girlfriend or something like that. If I was with my girl and another man attacked her or something, or sexually harass her, of course I would defend her. But you have to have self-control, and people acting like that is just plain stupid. I don't see what that achieves. I mean, in that sort of situation, when you have no control, you have no sort of referees or anything, anything could happen. Seriously, this is no joke. I mean, there's been examples of people involved in street fights ending up with a serious head injury. And why? Because of a moment's stupidity. So if the Asian guys were protecting women or something, fine, but you know, why take a mob of 27 to do it? And I very much doubt that's the case. But we don't know, because no one's putting a context to this. Unfortunately, the comments section is just back and forth sort of racism. Like, you Asians this and you white guys that. It's nauseating. I mean, whoever you are, if you're Asian or black or white, I hope you would agree that this is just a punk card move to group up in a gang like that and attack people. And I hate it. I hate seeing that sort of shit, because it's just, I think it's despicable cowardice. And that's not a word I throw around, but on this occasion I do use it because I think it's valid. It's despicable cowardice to outnumber a man in that way. You know, if those guys were harassing them or something, why not get the police? You know, instead of getting involved in a big street brawl like that, why not just go and... Well, okay, maybe that sounds naive, but the point I'm making here is, whatever way you look at it, 27 on 3 is cowardice. Now, if you were there, I'd be very happy to hear your insight, explain what happened. I'd like to see you to try to justify either way. It did show at the end some of the girls were sort of checking the white guys, making sure they were okay, so I don't know if this was a case of jealous Asian guys pissed off that their women were with white guys. I mean, I've personally had to deal with that a few times, because I've had a Chinese girlfriend. Not much, thank goodness, but a little bit. Not nothing compared to this, but it pisses me off that people can behave in that sort of way and just be so stupid. And also racism pisses me off, that people are saying all Asians are like this. That's not fair. Of course not all Asians are like this. I do think you can get trends. I do think it is fair to say that a lot of Asian people in the West do tend to work in groups. When there's altercations, they tend to... It is just a trend that when they have a grievance, numbers they use that as a weapon. I mean, look at the Jimmy Kimmel so-called racism incident. What you had then was a mob of 100,000 Chinese Americans calling for Jimmy Kimmel's blood. And I do think this is characteristic of a lot of parts of Asia. I'm not going to say everyone, but it's characteristic of a lot of Chinese Americans and a lot of Asians in other countries to work in gangs. I'll give another example. I've also watched a video in the United Kingdom, a nightclub outside Manchester, another street brawl, this time between Chinese and Vietnamese, Now that really pissed me off, because I'm thinking, how dare these people think that they can act like this in another country? How dare they think they could get into a street brawl in the UK, i.e. bring Asian territorial disputes and do that here? And by the way, just in case anyone thinks I'm biased, I have exactly the same principle for British football hooligans who act like this abroad. It's just, when you're in another country, you don't behave like that. It's as simple as that. If I go to China, I'm not going to get into a public street brawl unless I absolutely had to defend myself. But that sort of behaviour just sickens me, and I still think that it's a trend among a lot of Asian people to basically use strength in numbers. Now, I'm not going to generalise, I'm not going to do what people in the thread done and say all Asians are cards, but it is a trend. And if you're Asian, instead of, if you're from any part of Asia, instead of sort of reacting to that nationalistically, consider it. Consider what I'm talking about, because you see it quite a lot actually. It's very common in Western countries to see large groups of Chinese hanging about together, and I think it's a very bad attitude if you're in another country. I think Westerners, for the most part, are more open-minded when they go to other countries. I think they tend to be a bit braver in terms of integrating. If that's a controversial statement, so be it. But it's just something I've noticed.